Welcome back to Open Line. Talking about, does Nashville need a community oversight board? This would be a board with investigative powers over the police department. This show was one that we booked before the events of the day, before the district attorney released video that showed Daniel Hambrick running from police as he was shot. And so that is certainly weighing on our discussion as we have this discussion. We're streaming this on Facebook. A comment from Facebook about Community Oversight Board from Brian Hullett. He says simply, ask Chicago how police oversight works. What about, I guess he's insinuating it didn't go well there. What about that comment?
Well, community oversight boards have been in cities across the country for at least 30 years. So the good news is that we have a lot of data about what makes an oversight board effective and what doesn't make an oversight board effective. And Stanford Policy Review says that the three main components of an effective oversight board are independence, empowerment, and funding. So there are a lot of cautionary tales across the country about how not to form an oversight board. And potentially Chicago is one of those examples. Right now they are having a lot of trouble trying to make sure that the board actually has enforcement abilities. They're actually trying to get subpoena power for a lot of boards across the country, and that's why we are heartened by the fact that the Tennessee State Attorney General's opinion is that a board formed in Nashville will derive its power from the Nashville Charter, which would allow it to have subpoena power. And that would make it one of the most important steps on a national landscape to be able to have a board that has all of the components that it needs to be effective and to actually restore trust and accountability in our community.
All right, we have a bunch of calls. Let's go to Richard. Hello, Richard. Richard, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hello, go right ahead.
Am I coming through?
Sir, yeah, you have a comment here?
Yes, my comment. First, I attended the petition drive. I was never been so proud of Nashville. This is the Nashville residents and citizens. This is a much needed reform that's not just important here in Nashville, but nationwide. Without a controlled police, we have few people. As I came to Nashville as a domestic refugee, a multiple police abuse survivor. So this is a very important issue. I see the import of this. But what fewer realize that already in Nashville, the police have higher standards. They're an exemplary police department and earn 5-star ratings. This really does a disappointment to me that they have this execution style. Just recently, a law enforcement officer was given the police Officer of the Year award for not shooting at a suspect that assaulted him. And this is the type of exemplary behavior we can expect from the national law enforcement. And my question, will this board also investigate serious civil liberties violations as well?
I believe the answer is yes, but I'll let you answer that question.
Most complaints would fall under some sort of civil liberty violation. Most of those cases would be investigated, absolutely, and if necessary, they would be referred to the grand jury for further action.
Let's go to Taylor. Hello, Taylor.
Good evening. Good program. You don't have to be from the African American community to realize, watching that video tonight, that this was a trial and jury and execution by the policeman who shot this fellow in the back. He didn't know what kind of guy this was. It was just someone running from him. And the board you're speaking of sounds like it might be a good idea, but I think you're probably stretching what it will investigate into a 24-hour-a-day, 5-day-a-week job, and the more it's stretched out, the less support you're going to get from the public. But let me say this. The TBI trains most of these officers, and they help go over when to shoot, this, that, and the other. The Attorney General has to be friends with the police department because he has to work with them every day. How can the TBI train these guys to do what they do and then investigate when they in fact do shoot someone.
So you have concerns about the TBI, the policing of the police department. Taylor, thank you for that comment. He also said he's concerned that what you're talking about becomes so broad that it loses its effectiveness, that you would be investigating things 24 hours a day. What about that concern? What specifically, again, are you going to take on? And could a board like this take on too much stuff?
I don't think it can take on too much stuff. I think it gives folks an outlet because these complaints are happening now, and they're going to, again, the internal office of professional accountability at the police department here in Nashville. I think it will ramp up because more people may trust the process once it's independently done. But again, that's why we require full funding of this board. We'll have a staff to fully fund it. And
what is full funding, and what kind of staff are we talking about?
So in the referendum that the 8,200 plus folks in Nashville signed, we're asking for $1.5 million to fully staff it. You know, you have the executive director, again, you have the assistant director, you have the investigators, you have legal, which is necessary because this is a concern, and as you can see, folks are concerned with folks losing their lives from traffic stops. So it is vital, and it is something that will help build trust and give accountability and transparency again in the community.
Let's go to Reverend Fuzz. Hello, Reverend Fuzz.
Hey.
What's on your mind?
I want to ask a couple things here. Number one, is there an alternative to the Community Oversight Committee? Like, could the current Internal Affairs Department be expanded by adding like 12 or whatever number of citizens to it who have a vote or a voice on whatever decisions they make? I'm really sorry about the killing today. And then Chief Anderson said something to me a couple of years ago, and he said, Reverend, we train our officers not to use deadly force. I just fired 2 officers because they used their weapons and fired on a guy who was trying to run them over with his car. We trained them to get out of the way. I saw a situation today where the officer could have gotten out of the way, and I've asked the officers, why not shoot him in the leg or limb, and they always responded that that's not easy to do. And I said, well, if an officer can't shoot him in the leg or limb who's trained to shoot, how can an assailant actually hit a target while he's running? Why can't the officers get out of the way, get to safety, and they would catch that person? That's what I've seen in all these cases here. Those are just my comments. And
the video has raised questions on the part of a lot of people. Reverend Fuzz, I want to ask you, while you're on the phone, what is your characterization of the relationship between the police department and the community?
Well, in some parts of the community it's good, but I saw that report that in the African American community it was 66% favorable, and I saw the chief response to that. Overall 86%, we're doing great. Our chief should have said we need to work on relationships in that community with 66%. And that's very unfortunate, his response there. The mayors and our elected officials, it doesn't matter who the chief is, it matters who the chief works for.
The mayor.
Thank God. Whoever the chief works for, doesn't matter who the chief is, it matters who the chief works for. That's my thoughts.
Reverend Fuzz, thank you for the call. And his initial question was, he's thinking, is there some other way to go about this?
Sure.
Adding people to, I guess, civilians to the internal affairs that already investigates within the police department. What about his question?
Well, again, like I said, my uncle Timothy Lane was killed 18 years ago. Reverend Fuzz was actually around when that happened. I remembered him being at my uncle's funeral. Again, there was civilians in the internal process then, and it did not work out. You can go back and research this. This is, this was historically done. So, doing the same thing over and over is called insanity. We know that in other cities, independence is what is really going to move this forward to really have some transparency and accountability.
I'm going to go to Well, do you want to answer that? Or?
No,
All right, I'm going to ask one other quick question here before we go to break. On Facebook, and we're getting a lot of comments. One saying essentially, you all are anti-police. And I'm sure this was something that the people opposed to this whole idea say. So here we have Rachel Elizabeth saying, you guys are anti-police. What do you say to that comment?
I can, so imagine a scenario like the one that we are experiencing right now, actually, where there's a questionable shooting. If the police department is investigating themselves and the public does not like the result, they're going to hold the police department accountable, and they're going to have hard feelings against the police department. If we have an independent board that's making that investigation, making those recommendations, the police department is shielded from the backlash of those decisions. This actually protects police officers as much as it protects civilians.
Okay. So you're saying you're not anti-police.
That's correct.
Why don't we take a break? We'll take a break. There are a lot of calls here, so we'll get to your call. Jay, Rick, Mary, others. Hold on the line. Take a break. Be back right after this.